As we move through Advent this year as a community, we are thinking about our Redeemer, my Redeemer, and what this means for us in these very uncertain times. This morning, I'm going to share some of the ideas of a very famous Canadian Quaker, Ursula Franklin, who died in 2016. She was a physicist, a pacifist, and a feminist in the hopes that her thoughts will help us. And for those of you who live in the High Park area, and there are certainly some of them here now, and I live in the High Park area, we know that there's a high school named after her, the Ursula Franklin Academy. Now, Ursula Franklin was born in Germany before World War II. She experienced the bombing of Berlin. She survived 18 months in a Nazi work camp and became convinced as a result of all her life experience that war does not work, even for the winner. I heard her speak at an ACW conference in which she shared that she would regularly ask herself as a Quaker the question, if I were accused of being a Quaker, would there be enough evidence to convict me? And at the conference, she asked each of us, 200 or so delegates, to reflect on a related question that she put to us. If I were accused of being a Christian, would there be enough evidence to convict me, both individually and collectively? Now, we were quite stunned, as you can imagine, by this question, and as you can tell, I've never forgotten being asked it. Ursula Franklin set out 3 criteria, 3 areas of evidence that we would have to meet. First of all, are we active in our Christian communities? Do we go to church? Do we practice our faith together and privately at home? And of course, we all said quietly to ourselves, yes, until she said that that evidence would not be enough to convict us. So the second question was, do we do what we can to help those in need in our communities, in society, those we encounter in our lives? And that reminds me of volunteering at the Common Table, which I do on Friday mornings. As good Anglicans, we of course quietly said yes to ourselves until she said that adding that second piece of evidence would not be enough to convict us as well either. And then she asked us the evidence-based question that really shook us up. What are we doing to address the root causes of all the problems that we are so aware of in society and in our lives and in the world? And she said that unless we're actively doing all 3, responding actively, however and whenever we can, to the root causes as well, there will not be enough evidence, and there will never be enough evidence to convict us of being Christians, she said. So as we continue our Advent reflections individually and as a community here at Redeemer, I suggest this morning that we can each take some personal time, perhaps, to reflect on these 3 interrelated kinds of evidence, where we are going individually and together. The third criteria being, I think, the most difficult one of all. Now, as a relatively new member of this congregation, I can clearly see evidence of action here in all 3 areas, and I hope you can as well. And on the third criteria, we certainly have people here who go on marches, send in protest letters to politicians, and hold workshops to increase our understanding of current social issues. But I have to tell you that it is the third area that I personally worry about the most, certainly as I, like you, vote in elections, watch the news on TV as I do every evening, and read whatever I can. So as we go through this Advent, let's think about the balance we're living out between these 3 areas and hoping that there really is enough combined evidence to convict us of being Christians, both individually and as a community. So finally, and on a note of deep hope, I'd like to end with some of the words of Zechariah that we just sang and heard as part of his prophecy, and that strengthen us in Advent. And he said, "Blessed be the Most High, the God of Israel. You have come to your people and set them free. You have set us free to worship you without fear, holy and righteous before you all the days of our life." So as Zechariah's canticle comes to a climax, its message of salvation and hope goes way beyond earthly liberation to the forgiveness of sins, the coming of peace, and even rescue from death itself. Amen.